transitioning to basketball, this was an interesting story. This is one of those stories where you wake up on a Sunday, you're not expecting much news, and all of a sudden you just are kind of dropped this little nugget of golden information, just something to lighten the mood a little bit. So Kevin Garnett, we obviously know about his history with Ray Allen. And yesterday he posted a photo on Instagram. It was a story about the Boston Celtics out in 2011. They had 4 members of the Boston Celtics team be selected to play in the All-Star game that was actually played, ironically, in Los Angeles at Staples Center. At the time, it was the Big Four with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo. And Kevin Garnett posted a photo because the Celtics had initially posted a photo. He kind of reposted a photo, but he cropped out Ray Allen in his edited version of the photo on Instagram. Now, we obviously know that Ray Allen joined the Miami Heat for the 2012-2013 season after Ray Allen had spent 5 seasons with the Celtics and had reached the NBA Finals 2 times, had won an NBA title in 2008. And this was a very obviously contentious, it's been a kind of an acrimonious relationship between these two, really between all 3 of them and Ray Allen. And the big reason is because of the battles that the Celtics and the Heat had for so many years. And just the season prior, that was when the Heat and the Celtics had kind of an epically heated 7-game series in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's when some people thought they saw LeBron James's greatest game that he's ever played in Game 6 at TD Garden with the Celtics up 3-2. And then Ray Allen obviously comes back the year later to sign with the Miami Heat. But one of the reasons why old-timers and true sports purists really reminisce on the old days, and in the sports eras that preceded this current sports era that we're in, is because of the true rivalries and competitiveness that existed amongst players and amongst teams. Teams truly had disdain and real animosity for one another. The Lakers and the Celtics in the 80s, there was true disdain there. The Bulls and the Pistons in the 90s, the Bulls and the Knicks, there was visceral animus that existed between these players, between these teams. They genuinely disliked one another. But as fans, that made those matchups so much more intriguing, so much more fascinating to watch, and made them more highly anticipated games to watch and to have entertain us. But the one thing that always existed, and yes, there was mutual respect between the players, but obviously they truly disliked one another. But even with that being said, one of the reasons why we've cherished those series for so long is because we've actually known that what's existed beneath the surface of all that was a mutual respect, was an appreciation of one another's games. Perhaps the greatest rivalry in NBA history, the Lakers and the Celtics with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, those two guys grew up as competitors, adversaries, and foes their entire career, their entire life, through college, then when they reached the pros. And yet, despite all that, we know that there lies a layer of true love and affection and respect for one another. Now, Kevin Garnett obviously grows up in an era of more of an old school type of mentality, playing physical, being chippy. You're not with him, you're against him. If you're not wearing the same colors and the same uniform as him, you are the enemy. He despises you. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that's part of the reason why Kevin Garnett had all the success that he had. That's one of the main reasons why he was a league MVP. He was a defensive player of the year. He was a 12-time all-defensive player, a 9-time all-NBA player, an NBA champion. Was because of that mindset, because he approached every game and every series with that same intensity, with that same mindset. That's one of the reasons why he was so great, is because he played with that mantra: if you're with him, you're against him. Right? You're the enemy. And so when you stepped in between those lines on the hardwood, he wanted to go at you, and it was personal with Kevin Garnett. And so the problem though here is that, listen, yes, the issue obviously lies with where Ray Allen chose to play. Because it wasn't just the fact that he left. We've talked about this before. Where you go after you leave a team, that matters. He decided to join the Miami Heat, who had just beaten them in 7 games, who had just defeated the Boston Celtics, a team that Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, they battled together. They were on the same team. They were together. And they just reached the Eastern Conference Finals. So there's a reason why you kind of have this conspiracy going on. Well, not this conspiracy, but essentially that Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Rajon Rondo have been conspiring against Ray Allen to shun him and banish him and view him as an outcast because of how gut-wrenching and disappointed they were that he chose to leave. It's the same argument that we've had about Kevin Durant for so many years, especially recently. It wasn't the fact that he left Oklahoma City that caused an outrage. It was who he decided to join. He decided to join a Warriors team that had just gone 73-9, that had beaten his Oklahoma City Thunder in 7 games after OKC led 3-1. Had Kevin Durant decided to go back to his hometown in Washington and play for the Wizards, maybe Westbrook might have still been disappointed, but there wouldn't be this public disapproval of what was happening. And that's the same thing with Ray Allen. So I understand why Kevin Garnett has harbored such resentment for so long towards Ray Allen. I understand the competitive side of him. He feels betrayed, and I understand why he's held this grudge against Ray Allen for so long, because he felt it was personal. Even though Ray Allen said it wasn't personal, he viewed it as a slight that, hey, you can't win with me as your running mate. And again, the one thing, though, that if you're Kevin Garnett, you need to take a step back and say, okay, you know what? I can't be petulant anymore. This has to be beneath me. It's been 9 years, and the reality is Ray Allen helped Kevin Garnett achieve the one thing that he was so desperately starving for throughout his entire career, and that was an NBA championship. Ray Allen helped deliver a championship to Kevin Garnett and the Boston Celtics. Ray Allen averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game in 6 games in the 2008 NBA Finals. He was a major contributor to that Boston Celtics title. And Kevin Garnett has Ray Allen to thank for winning him an NBA title. And at the end of the day, if you're Kevin Garnett, again, I understand your frustrations and how heartbreaking it was, how disappointing it was, how you felt blindsided by that move, by that decision. But it's time to kind of grow up. Don't be so petty. Put your differences aside and appreciate the accomplishments that you two had together. And recognize that this guy and Ray Allen was instrumental in helping me achieve the one thing that I was deprived of in Minnesota. And that was an NBA title. Because I'm telling you, the Boston Celtics would not have won that NBA title if it wasn't for Ray Allen. I'm not saying he was the best player on that Celtics team. That was Paul Pierce that season. But Ray Allen averaged 20 points a game. He was a major contributor, and he had a lot of production. He produced for the Celtics time and time again. And again, I understand that Kevin Garnett felt it was personal, but appreciate the fact that you won an NBA title together. Because at the end of the day, winning an NBA title should trump that decision. Hell, even Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant are cordial with one another And they didn't even win an NBA title. They just made an NBA Finals. So if you're Kevin Garnett, put the pettiness aside and just appreciate what you guys all accomplished together. There's no need 9 years later when the Celtics post a picture of all four of you making an All-Star game in 2011 to undermine that and just say, well, the hell with Ray Allen. I'm just going to crop him out because I don't want to remember that he was a part of our team. It's actually really a shame. I understand it's personal. I understand you felt like it was a personal affront, but the guy helped you win a championship. And at the end of the day, you would be without one. You'd be deprived of a championship if it wasn't for him. So put your differences aside. Stop being childish. That's what I would say, and moody, to be honest.